right.
Jan and Dan, I also sent along the meeting minutes from our
I
last
did
meeting
see
in
that.
April.
All right, so I started the recording.
Okay, great. So July 10th, open at 7:06. In attendance, we have Dan Byer, Connie Beal, Janice Muldoon Moores, Kathy Schofield, and Robert Langer.
Oh,
Correct?
he's not here. No, he's not here. I don't know why
Oh,
that shows up. That's, I was in my email. I don't know why. That's the professor I work with.
oh, well,
He's in a, I don't know why he shows up here.
Probably you
Oh,
must be signed
your
into that
name-
account now.
your name is coming up as Robert Langer too.
My
So,
name is
That's-
coming up. Yeah. It must
Connie-
be how, because I don't use Teams that much. Must be.
well, Connie, I hate to tell you, but you're not Connie anymore.
Oh, I know. So what do I have to do? Log out?
Just leave it alone. It's not hurting anything. I wouldn't worry about it. It just means that's the account you're under, because you'd have to completely sign out of Teams and sign back in, and I'm sure it won't be that simple because it's Teams. So this is the same thing that happened to Brendan, that meeting that got all screwed up. That's why, because he was accidentally on his work account, but he didn't, even though he signed out, it didn't like fully sign him out.
Yeah.
And that's why nobody else could sign in.
Yeah. All right, so tonight we're supposed to reopen the hearing for 29 Thornton Street. And do we have anybody here representing 29 Thornton Street? Okay. Based on that, Connie and Janice, do you want to give some feedback about the walkthrough and what your impressions were?
Yeah, I can give mine and then Janice can give hers if that's all right with her. I took lots of pictures. It is an old property. From the outside, it looks very poor. But when you go inside, it had a lot of character and it was quite nice, but it was old. And it does appear structurally unsound without shoring up some rafters and beams and things. It's out of whack a bit. But there's certainly a lot of fine woodwork in there that would be wonderful if it is approved for demolition, if that would be like reused and not just trashed. Like there's beautiful bricks, there's beautiful stones in the foundation, there's beautiful 24-inch wide. I think it's probably, and it might be southern pine, I'm not sure, but flooring is kind of like a pumpkinish color. A beautiful staircase, very small, narrow, old-fashioned staircase that wouldn't pass code now, but could be grandfathered in an old house. And so it was a lovely home. Basically, it had like 2 rooms on each floor with a huge middle chimney that served like fireplaces, like in the downstairs, what would be the downstairs parlor, and the downstairs maybe dining room. And then up on the second floor, like 2 large bedrooms that would have fireplaces in each bedroom. And then up on the third floor in the attic, there was a finished room with some wood paneling, and then one big open room. They had painted the underside of the planking under the roof and the rafters. They had painted white up in the attic, and there was some boards on the floor on the unfinished room. But of course, it was hot as Hades in there. There's no insulation in this house, and so when it's hot outside, it's warmer in the house and outside. So it had a lot of character and charm, but it would probably cost, I don't know, $300,000 or more to refit it, to redo it so it would be structurally sound and so forth. So, and the lot it's on is very nice. There's a little fruit orchard toward the right in the back. There's a little grape arbor. There's some other fruit trees and a nice big, like open field lot. And it's very charming and beautiful. So it's a nice old home. The owner, the current owner already has quite a lot of money invested into it. And to renovate it would cost a lot more. And water comes into the cellar that they have to pump out. If the house has now lived a year or more with no one in it, with no electricity and no heat. So it is in rough shape. So I'm torn because it's wonderful to have such an old house and it's a beautiful character inside, but then I do understand the owner's dilemma about how much more do you sink into it, and it is that possible. So
Right.
So that was my take on it.
Excellent. Janice, do you want to share your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I was impressed with the basement because I thought basement looks like wonderful. To me, the house looked, I mean, I was impressed about how good it looked. I mean, obviously not great, but I mean, I love the center chimney and the fireplaces and all that. I mean, it had some character. It obviously, with the repairs that they had done over the years, they kind of bastardized it, I think. But because I am not a structural engineer, would really like to get a different opinion from someone who knows, who's done it, who knows how to deal with old houses, as to really how much it would take structurally to put it back together. And then you're just talking about renovating it. But I mean, I didn't see the problem with the roof from the outside where he said it was leaning. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it was better than I had expected, and it has beautiful wood in it.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. And I did think, based on all of the basements that we've had to crawl through, that the basement is actually in remarkably good condition, considering, with the exception of the water. So it's always a question of, would a French
But it's
drain?
not the only house. It's not the only house that's gotten water in it. The question is, the problem is you just remove it so before it does damage.
Right. And also, I mean, with modern methodology, a French drain could alleviate, water coming to that basement. So, but I agree with the structural questions. I don't know if we can, because we've run into this a couple of times, whether or not we can ask Colonial Restorations and Brad Green if we can pay him to do consultations on structural issues. I mean, you'd like to reassure homeowners that, it's not outside of their reach, especially when I got the impression that they really like the historic character of the building. They just weren't sure if they could keep going without getting into a money pit. And that they also were going to speak with their another architect or another builder, and just see what they thought. So
well, just for the record, he mentioned that they already checked with some builders. What was it, 3 or 4 builders already?
Right.
That thought to go down. So Janice had mentioned to him maybe a builder who's more in line with preservation, because some builders just would rather knock everything down and build new. I mean, that's the quicker, least expensive way. But so getting a builder that's used to preserving, is that something that we can ask? Or
That's why I was hoping we could do something like that, maybe get a fund to have somebody go out who structurally can assess things better than I can, putting my wet finger in the wind and feeling it, you know.
What, Janice, that method doesn't work for you anymore?
But it does, but I don't think people would accept my scientific application. I can
Maybe
usually
not.
go through a house and I feel how much money it'll be now.
Yeah, I bet you
I don't know
can
what I
now.
don't know what that skill is, but
It's called
worth-
an empty bank account.
I think it's called having been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
It
I
would-
mean, go ahead, Dan.
Yes, I was going to say, like, more in general terms too. I mean, other boards have, like planning board, conservation, where they do that. So it'd be worth reaching out to somebody to find out, like, what is an hourly price that we could have somebody in the future that we could reference when this stuff comes up. I mean, we do have some money, not a lot. I'm probably looking at easily $100 an hour plus travel time.
Right. But I mean,
that's interesting
overall,
idea.
it seems like a very short expense. If it means that, preservation is possible. Connie, do you know what the electrical service was down there?
I don't know. The meter was totally gone. Just the meter housing was there, but not the meter itself. And all the electrical, when I looked around, I didn't see any wiring. If there's any wiring, maybe it's behind the walls, but I didn't notice any. Well, I don't recall noticing any outlets or anything. But
Probably
so
100 amp if it's old.
yeah, like if it's real old, it's usually knob and tube or something, but I didn't see any knob and tube up in the attic or anything. But wiring would have been put in at some point in the early 1900s or something. But even the plumbing had all been redone and was all plastic plumbing, but the pipes were all disconnected and sawed off and everything. You only saw parts of some of the plumbing, even that wasn't left there. And there was no active like kitchen or bathroom. There was no fixtures. The whole thing, it was just, you saw the outside walls and, you didn't see anything like that. Oh, and there was the addition on the back. I don't know if that was an addition or what, but it was like a vaulted ceiling up to the ceiling, which could have been like a big kitchen or something. But that too didn't have any.
I thought they took all that stuff out in preparation for renovation, though.
Yeah, probably they
Because that
did.
one tub was still upstairs.
There was one, tub upstairs, but it wasn't connected. And there were no toilets, there were no sinks, there was.
So there wasn't a full bathroom downstairs. Is that correct?
Not that we saw, no. Now, in that age house, often when you did get into, say, the late 1800s and the early 1900s, often they would put a bathroom in, you use the outhouses originally. And then often they'd only put a bathroom like on the second floor where the bedrooms were. They didn't always put them on the first floor. But I have no idea from the plumbing that was left there to know. Oh, off of the
Well, I think it was hard
parlor,
to
there
tell
was a
because they had
small
ripped,
room that
they
looked like a boarding room. Pardon me?
I think it was hard to tell because they had ripped everything out.
Yeah, everything
I
was
mean, that house
gone.
was cleared out, sinks,
Yeah.
toilet,
Right.
everything. So it was in preparation for renovation. So I don't think that that's a factor in deciding whether it should be ripped down because they were taking it out to redo
Right,
it.
yeah. And they were worried that the north wall there, they thought was out of kilter a bit.
Right.
The roof seemed all right. Then the floors weren't that shake. There was one little soft area in the living room, but they really weren't that. I mean, I've certainly been in worse houses,
Right.
So, I mean, even before the vinyl siding had gone on and there was the wood cedar shingles outside the house didn't look like it would look good inside. So I was shocked at how beautiful it was inside.
So was I. I was
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and Dan, you probably haven't seen any of the photographs, so I'm wondering if we just continue this hearing onto the next month, because they're not here, obviously. And I certainly would like to hear what, I mean, they may still be investigating, trying to work with other people to see if they can come in and, evaluate what it's going to entail to do the remodeling. Because, I mean, it, from the get-go, it seemed like they had a desire to work with the house and bring it back to life and create, restore, or retain the historic features. And it looks like every successive step led to an issue that they weren't sure they could having in the whole scheme of things. And they also did mention that if somebody were willing to buy it for what they've invested, that they would be happy to let it go. So I'm wondering if we just, instead of putting it into demolition delay, if we were to just go back to them and say, we'd like to get your feedback on what you were able to find out and which direction you are considering.
Do you,
Yeah,
do you
because
think
we
we,
did give them we did give them 2 names of people to reach out to get another evaluation. So
Right.
it'd be nice. I hope they did it, but
I mean, and I agree with you, Dennis. I think in the future, it would be very beneficial if we had somebody, who had a lot of experience with these, older structures that could just really make a very honest call and say, it's not worth saving. The money is going to be too much. And then if that's going to be the case, what can be salvaged?
what can we do as a committee to start that process, or is it even possible for us to use some of our budget to call someone in to get an eval on this house? Is that possible?
We have money. We'd have to find somebody. I believe engineering is exempt from 30B, but I'd have to, this may be something that this may be a consultant service, so this may be something that technically we would need to get multiple quotes on people who provide this and, an hourly rate. I mean, if they're willing to, if they're willing to work a little bit and wait and see, I mean, it does seem a shame to just tear this down and close it out, but if they're actually invested in trying to do something, it's a shame there wasn't a way to find funding somewhere, but that doesn't seem to really be available to us.
why isn't it available to us? Don't we have money for the Historic Commission?
So we have money for consultants. Like we could probably hire, I'm saying it's a shame that we couldn't find a way to use CPA funds to fund this type of repair, but you can't spend public money on private projects. Can't use our tax dollars to fix up somebody's house so they can sell it at a profit. That's not really how that works.
I was just
Yeah.
talking about getting a consultant.
So we have our budget. I think it's $3,000. So we can, I think, allowable use of that money. It supports the goal of this commission.
Well, if the owner hasn't contacted the 2 names and indicates that he's not likely to contact them, maybe we could contact one of the 2 to just get an opinion on the structure and if they could do an estimate of how much it would cost to bring the structure to what would be needed. That would give us an idea. So maybe we need to do that.
So who are the two, we had, Brad Green and who else did we,
I think you mentioned Peter Coffin,
Often, yeah.
oh, that's right.
but I mean, I think Colonial Restorations would be better because they specialize in structural restoration.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's their
Absolutely.
job.
Peter could give them an opinion, an idea, but I think structurally to determine whether or not it's sound, if it can be, what's going on with that second story wall, which seemed to be the biggest concern to them.
Mhm.
And the water in the basement and the condition of the beams in the basement. If, Brad can give them an idea. I mean, if it just would be nice to have a professional opinion that they
I
can
agree.
work with or not work with.
What was Brad's last name?
Green.
Green. Their company was founded in 1981, Colonial Restorations.
Okay. Well, do we have to make a motion to do that or just to continue this? And does the committee want to move on that or wait and find out if the owner already did it?
So why don't we, let me know what you think about this. What if we were to make a motion that with the property owner's approval and desire, that the Historic Commission will call in a consultant to meet with them, a structural engineer, to meet with them and the group to discuss the viability of saving the structure. But I mean, there's no sense in spending the money if they've already made up their mind. And I
Yeah,
definitely,
I heard conflicting opinions from the owner. He really liked the restoration idea, but after he heard from the 3 or 4 builders that said, no, it's not worth it and tear it down, he did mention he if he took it down, he'd like to set it further back on the lot. And, so it seems like he's kind of in a quandary also.
so why don't we write him a note or a letter, an official letter, and say that we met this evening. These are some of the options that we believe might be worth pursuing with you. And if we move to demolition, then, we would like to explore the possibility of recovering the materials, the historic materials. Now, I do know that one of the gentlemen has already picked a beam out, understanding its value, and, would they consider donating the materials to a town project if they plan to demolish?
Or do we want to give them the option to reuse it in the structure that they build? Because he was thinking of reusing it in the new structure. Would we want to consider that?
Yeah, absolutely. What do
I
you
mean,
think,
at a
Jim?
minimum, so at a minimum, hopefully, they're going to rebuild something that replicates what was there. If they could reuse as much as possible, at least that's a step in the right direction. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can really do, other than make them wait 6 months, which at this point would probably end up being closer to a year because they're
Right.
not going to start with the project in January. But
Because he
You know,
had
so-
mentioned,
it's-
oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. He had mentioned that they were wanting to not just knock it down, but save everything that was worth saving. So, and
Mhm.
that does take longer and that does cost more money than just coming in and demoing it and crashing it down and not worrying about keeping the good wood and so forth.
Dan,
So,
do you know if they pulled a building permit?
Nope, just this permit. I mean, it sounds like this is a normal applicant. It's not like a turn and burn developer here,
Oh, absolutely. I don't believe that for 1 minute.
that they bought this property as potentially as an investment property. So they're not, just looking to tear this down and I don't know. But yeah, no building permits yet. They're waiting. So they're doing this first. I mean, at this point, the hearing's open, so we can just keep continuing the hearing, but at some point we'll have to make a decision.
Right. Well, you know what? Why don't we just state that in the letter, and I'll write the letter and I'll distribute it to everybody that, we still would find it important to get some more of their feedback, and that, we would be willing to see if we could get a consultant to come out, who has some experience with structural work, to talk to him.
Sounds good. Because I really would like Brad to see it because I think he would have some ideas.
I agree. I mean, I think Brad's going to walk in there and go, "Are you kidding me?" I think he'll enjoy it, but I think Brad has the ability to see through the problems. But we'll just have to see what he says. So let me write this letter. I will draft a letter to the applicant and just find out where they are at, and that we have not made a decision yet. Dan, is that going to get us in trouble with the demolition delay bylaw time frame?
No, so our requirement, I just looked again, our requirement was to open the hearing within 60 days. So we did that. So,
All right.
I mean, at some point though, we can't just continue a hearing for the next 10 years.
Right. And we don't want to. I mean, I don't think they want to. I mean, they're already knee deep in this project. So I would say we need to really consider closing out the hearing next month, if we can get all our information together and get them to respond as to how they want to proceed.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. So
Sounds
I
good to
will
me.
move to continue the hearing.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're good. All right, Dan, what else do we have on the agenda? Sorry, I don't have it.
It does look like
The rain.
Joe joined the meeting. So if you were looking for any information, I didn't see
Joe.
that. But
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry, I thought it was at 7:30,
I was looking.
not 7
Oh,
o'clock. I apologize.
That's all right, Joe. So we were just discussing the walkthrough that we did with you. And I think we're all still kind of in a state of uncertainty as to what you've been able to discover, any additional thoughts you've had since we met.
Since we met, obviously I met with Mike and Wally again to see what we could do. Obviously Mike is the builder. He's the one, and he's done a lot of historical house rehabs in the past. He doesn't think he can do anything with it. And Wally's feeling the same way. There's not a lot of options. We're trying to see if there's something we can salvage. What we discussed was possibly saving some of the beams and reusing them. Some of the lumber, I should say, whatever is still salvageable that is not, rotted or has termite damage, which I think there's still a little bit that we can salvage. As far as the structure itself, I don't think there's much we can do with it, based on based on the discussions with Wally and Mike and a couple of other builders.
And you didn't have an engineer come in and take a look at that wall, did you, by any chance?
An engineer, no. We had, no, just the builders and all the subs. We had everybody that, all our subs, the electrical, which there's nothing left. Plumbing, there's really nothing left. So it's basically all the subs, and then obviously our advisors, that do historical houses, like Wally and a couple other local guys.
So was the electric and the plumbing, was that gone when you purchased it?
I'm not sure if some of it was gone, some of it I think it was stolen in the meantime because it's been closed. We've owned it since the beginning of the year. I thought there was more there, but apparently somebody must have taken some of the copper because I think there was some copper in the main floor. But obviously somebody must have got a hold of it. We had some
Joe,
guys cleaning up, and they probably cleaned up stuff they shouldn't have cleaned up. They probably took.
So, Joe, just refresh my memory if you wouldn't mind. How long was the house not occupied before you purchased it?
With us, it's been 8 months, or 7 months, something like that. But it was on the market for not too long, but I don't think it was occupied before. From what I hear, the person that lived there was in Florida, the older gentleman. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know it was packed with somebody's belongings, including furniture and everything, that we donated, but that we had to clean out. But besides that, I'm not sure. I don't think it was habitable. If anybody was living there, there was no utilities. There was nothing left.
Right.
We purchased it, so there's. I don't think anybody could live there. If they were, they had no running water because the well doesn't work. They had no electricity. Electricity they had no plumbing.
And Joe, also one other question: was there a bathroom on the first floor?
There was a half bath, I believe, in the first floor.
So I think, Joe, where we kind of left off after our meeting, we were hoping that you might consider talking to someone who's done structural work on historic properties, and that would be Brad Green, excuse me, from Colonial Restorations. And we've been discussing whether or not we have funds available in our own account to cover like an evaluation, but I think that all depends on where you are in the process. I mean, because to be honest, we, speaking for myself, based on all of the other examples that we've seen and had to walk through, this definitely qualifies as preferably preserved. But I mean, if there's no options, and no consideration, we have to think about how to move forward. Excuse me.
I mean, we can get a structural engineer there. The only thing is, obviously, there's a cost associated with that, and then we still have to do the work,
Right.
I don't think it's civil engineering.
Or for somebody to come in and get some ideas from. I forgot who it was that one of you provided him with the number or something.
Yeah, it was
I did Brad Green.
Yeah, so we can certainly take a look at that.
The problem is,
call him and
I
see.
think the problem with just an engineer is sometimes they really don't know how to deal with older homes. Because I had an issue, an engineer came in, told me what to do. I spent all this money, did it, and it wasn't because he didn't understand older homes. It didn't work. Didn't fix it. So I think somebody who's dealt with older homes like Brad, that's his whole business. It's just older homes, period.
Yeah, it has to be somebody that understands that, that type of structure, because a lot of these guys won't even, they're busy as it is, and to come in and do a project that they're not comfortable with, it's difficult to get anybody to even look at it. Never mind take the job, and obviously they got to put a stamp on it. So, but we'll gladly talk to whoever we need to talk to figure out, if there's other alternatives. Like we've been contemplating for 8 months, what to do, and we actually, our intention was to try to salvage it, but we ran into these issues, and we're kind of stuck right now.
Right,
And we
right.
don't, we don't have the funds to. It's even the demo is an issue for us if we go that route. And it's already overextending what we can do with that property.
Right, right.
It was not something that we planned on, and that's costly as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know that, and I don't think any of us can guarantee that, getting a consultant to come in is going to, put a lower price tag on it. I think anytime you're dealing with an older home, we're all very familiar at the cost. Sometimes if the bones of the building are good, it's something that you can work with. And sometimes it's something you can't work with. And I think, before we go ahead and take the plunge and spend the money, I think we have to understand that, we have to agree it's, some mid-ground that, there's still a possibility to move forward. Or, if you're leaning in the other direction, then I think we have to, address that.
I mean, I'll gladly, look at all the alternatives, but I don't. Obviously, based on the conversation we had in the walkthrough, you saw what the house looks like.
Sure.
There's a lot to be done. It's not just, it's the entire structure. So it's not just one little thing we're working with. If we had good foundation to start with, that's one thing. Or if we only had to redo one floor, we basically have to start from scratch at some point. Regardless of which way we go, we have to start from the bottom up. There's really no way around it. There's very little to salvage, so I'm open to suggestions. I'll call whoever I need to call to get ideas and suggestions and other options, but I'm not sure. I don't think it's feasible for us, like I told you, it's not feasible. Either way, it's going to be a struggle, regardless which way we go.
Right,
financially, because
both
of
ways, buddy.
I'm just trying to make it work so it still looks, if we can do something that, even if we have to tear down, but do something that still preserves some of the integrity, we can gladly do that, but it's going to take a lot of work and planning.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
obviously we have to start from scratch on everything, including well, septic. There's really nothing there that we can use.
Okay, and why don't we do this? And you let me know if this is something that is okay with you. What if we were to try to get in touch with Brad Green and see if we can get him out in the next week or two? Because I'm assuming you don't want to put any more drag on this project.
No, we're trying to get it, started as soon as possible because we've been holding on to it, for a long time.
So what is your, I mean, do you have a time frame in mind? And is whatever the product is going to be at the end, are you planning on selling it, or are you going to be there, or?
It really plans what kind of building we can put up. The plan was not to sell it, it was to renovate and possibly have my parents move in at some point. But obviously a lot changes from now, depends how long it's going to take, what the market does. So there's a lot of factors on,
Absolutely.
my plan was not to sell it because, it was an exchange for me, so I have to hold on to it anyway for a while. That's why I wasn't in a rush in the beginning to do it, but I didn't realize it was going to take, well, first of all, we didn't realize we're going to have to, possibly knock it down. The intention was to renovate,
Yeah,
and then they would move in, but that didn't, because we loved the lot, but that's not an option right now because it's not livable. Even if we did a portion of it, and then renovated the rest, but doesn't, do one floor at a time. But
right,
it's
right.
not, that was our intention, but it's not feasible now because we have to start from scratch.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, if you're okay with us contacting Brad Green, we don't know whether or not he can come out if he's got the time, but if we can get him out and at least provide some, advice, he may say you're getting into a lot of money, I mean, I think we would all feel better, and then perhaps we can talk. If we end up at demolition, then maybe we can talk about how do we salvage, the materials. Can they be reused, repurposed, or donated for another project that may be happening in town? I don't know, what your feelings are about that, but it's
Yeah,
just something.
absolutely. Yeah. Believe me, we've donated a lot of the stuff that was there, a lot of that was left behind already, including a lot of the planks that, there was a lot of material that was left behind.
Yeah.
So I'll gladly do that, and either that or we salvage it and build, my intention was to build a little barn on the side, and salvage a lot of the old stuff, including the stone and all that, from the foundation. That was one of my original thoughts after, we realized that we couldn't salvage the house.
Right. Okay.
But I'm open to any suggestions at this point,
Okay. All right. I mean, if you are all right with giving us a week, not to exceed 2 weeks, to get a response from Colonial Restorations, to see if they can come out and just do a consulting, and kind of look through the property with you and see what can and can't be done, and where to draw the line. I think that would be really helpful for us. And I thought we kind of voted to extend the hearing until next month, and then we will make a final decision. Does
Okay,
sound-
that sounds good. Yeah, but as long,
Okay.
I don't want to delay it too long because then we get later into the season and then we can't really start work.
Right. Exactly. And we don't want to put any additional drag on this. I know you want to get things moving, and we all, realize what the timeframes are, and time costs money, and all right. So that being said, we will postpone the hearing, or how would we say, Dan?
Continue.
Continue the hearing until next month. We'll set a meeting date. Do we want to do that now?
Yes, we should do that while we're all here.
Yeah.
All right.
mean, I
So
think-
I am out.
The 24th is the date on the calendar, but if we,
It's 2 weeks, the 24th of July.
I mean, that's what we had blocked out, but
Do we want to go ahead and move on that, or the 31st?
I won't be available on the 31st or at all that week
Okay. All right. Then why don't we just say the 24th?
unless you meet during the day.
Yeah. Connie and Janice, Joe and Dan, does the 24th sound?
Yeah, 24th
Yeah.
works for me.
All right. And we'll meet at 7:00.
7 p.m.
All right. All right. And Joe, I will, if I hear anything back from Brad, I will get in touch with you and keep you updated.
Okay, yeah, just let me know.
All right. Oh, actually, it's probably going to be Connie that will do that. She's gonna take the reins on this. Cause I have to go, empty out the basement of the records room, so. We have multiple projects going. All right, so
Okay.
24th at 7 PM. We'll see you then.
We'll see you then. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Take care.
Good
Bye-bye.
night. Ian, did we have anything else on the agenda tonight?
The
I don't
record
think
room.
so. Oh, yeah,
Or the
just if
records
there's
room.
any,
Oh, the records room. So, yeah, the update on the records room is that David Dimanche is going to take the reins. We're going to be meeting with Ross Deacle. We have to meet with him by the end of July, and we've got to get our sign up. The preservation work sign. Dan, do you happen to know if the preservation work sign that's in the basement of the museum is still in pretty good condition?
I haven't the foggiest idea. We'd have to go look at it.
All right, it might be all faded
Probably
out. I
not.
mean,
Horrible.
yeah,
Did you say his
But-
name was Fecal?
Deacle.
Oh, good, much better.
I mean, it wouldn't cost that much to have a new sign made.
Yeah, and we probably
Especially
wouldn't
'cause
do
it-
one.
Should
Okay.
have CPA wording on it.
Yeah, exactly. And it won't be as big as the one we did at the town hall, just because we don't really have the space on the property.
Why don't we just have one Grams do it? It'd be better.
That's a great idea.
Actually, it is a great idea.
Dennis, it's too many letters for me. Sorry, honey.
Oh, all right.
Uh, yeah, I don't think Ross would approve, so we might have to go the professional route.
Yeah, they
this
are nothing if not very, I mean, I get it, but they are very particular. I listened in on most of that meeting, and David was there too. I mean, I guess I get it when they're dealing with both town and nonprofit groups, but
Yeah, we have very little wiggle room on this.
there's a lot of stuff that has to get done in a very certain way, and it all has to get documented. I mean, we really, like, stuff is going to have to go out to bid pretty quick here. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully Mondo can write all that for us, but
Dan, do you happen to also know if he ended up getting his check? They
that was
crossed-
submitted for payment for this week. It went in last night.
Okay, all right. I
Paid
just
all
want
my
to
other
give you a head.
bills. And I don't know, I mean, if you're staying around that, if we want to update where those are getting sent, I mean, if you send them to me, that's fine, but
I think it's probably easier to work through you because you are, at the town hall. You can process a lot faster than any of us could.
I mean, especially, when the project starts too, like, so like we have Horsley Witten reviewing all the invoices from UEL before we pay them. So I would assume we would ask Armando to do the same of the contractor we eventually hire. But
Yep,
I will say, based on my experience with the campus project, we definitely need to have somebody who's coordinating all the finances. What, if that's David, that's fine, but a lot of stuff seemed to just go in a circular file.
right.
But yeah, that's fine. I don't know if you want to let them, you just send those things to me, and then at least we'll have them.
All right, let's do that. So, and then I think, what else did you pick up out of that meeting? Just that it's gonna be very tight schedule. We're gonna have to stay on top of all the documentation very carefully.
Yeah, I mean,
before
we
that-
have to, so we have to write an RFP for the project. I think they probably have to sign off on that. We have to advertise it. There's a bunch of stuff that as part of that has to get done in a particular way. Then we have to award a contract. I don't know if that's something that this board and probably the select board needs to vote on that. And then, obviously they'll have to do the work. We'll have to supervise the work. I'm sure there'll be decisions that are going to come up.
Yeah,
Any change orders have to go back to the state for approval. I mean, this project actually is fairly straightforward, I think, in the context of some of the things they deal with.
Yeah,
You know, it's not like some, you know, massive renovation where you're going to run into all sorts of unknowns. So it on that front, it might not be as bad.
so yeah, when we meet with Ross Deagle and Armando, and everybody's welcome to come. I mean, I think the more people that have eyes on this project, the better, because then you'll understand the process, you know, and how tightly we need to stick to the course. I think we definitely should get the Schofield brothers over to discuss the land grant so that we can get that going through town council.
Yeah, and Ellen mentioned something to me about that. You might need to have a conversation with ethics to make sure that you protect yourself. And him in particular, because he was a former selectman, just make
Really?
sure that things are done in a certain way, because there may be certain 1-year cooling off periods, forever bans. I mean, it's not historic. So I believe an easement to the town has to go to town meeting to get voted on. So it may not be as big of a deal.
Okay, all right.
But it might just once more the details are known, it might be worth just a phone call to them to just say, hey, are there any disclosures that need to be filed? Just because
Yeah.
they don't mess around.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, Dan.
Not that I think there's anything whatever. I just you're better off to be proactive sometimes, that, you know, somebody gets the wrong idea.
With any or perceived potential conflict of interest, is better to explain and manage it than not have done the disclosure.
Right. And I mean, ethically speaking, where the land is going to be given to the town, I don't know that it's really, you know, it's
it may not
it's
happen.
like reverse ethics. So,
But it's probably good to start that conversation, because I think town council is very busy from other things I've seen. So I would expect that to take months.
yeah,
Like,
and
if the
that's really
goal is the
unfortunate.
November town meeting.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, because I think we tried to get that conversation going quite some time ago, and it was stalled out for 3 months. So, due to other factors.
Hopefully Mr. Demach can force that through, or, you know, work on that part of it and facilitate. I mean, maybe it's just real simple in the end of it. But,
yeah. All right. Okay. So you know what? I'll get in touch with David. Actually, I was supposed to get in touch with him today and just have that conversation and see if we can, you know, put a little fire under, you know, our issues, just to make sure they go through.
Well, I think it'd be good in general to identify like a to-do list of all the things that need to get done, who's going to do them, and when they're, you know, a timeline.
Yep. All right.
Because to me, I think getting the RFP, who's in charge of the RFP, and getting that together and issued, you know, it's a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks of advertising.
Right.
You know, I'm hoping that's something we can just pay Armando to write for us. That would be the ideal scenario here, and just take the town's boilerplate language and plug in all the scope.
Right. I mean, he pretty much did most of that work when he did the budget breakdown. So, I mean, it really is just, and he did write a narrative. I think it's like 19 pages,
Okay.
big document. So we may
Good.
just be able to flip it right over. So maybe it's a good idea to meet with David and just, you know, get the rest of the documents. I think I sent that to him, but just see where he can kind of steer this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're gonna need engineered plans and all that, which I assume is part of all that. So.
Yeah. All right. Great. All right. So anybody else? Any other issues, items?
Well, you mentioned I was gonna follow up about 29 Thornton Street. Were you calling Brad, or did you needed me to call Brad, or?
I can call Brad.
Okay,
Yeah,
So
Janice
Janice
and
will-
Brad have a very good relationship.
okay, great.
And yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great.
So Janice calls Brad and then Janice or I need to call Joe and let him know, right?
Yep.
So I'm happy to help Janice if you need me to.
All right, I'll let you, because I don't have his number.
Okay.
So
I
maybe
do have
what I can do is
Joe's
find out
number.
a time from Brad. I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, that sounds good. I have Joe's number because Dan very kindly sent it to me. So,
Okay.
okay.
Kathy, can you send me her number, please?
Connie's. Yes, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And then Dan, if you and I want to do the records room prelim stuff with David, I don't know what your time frame looks like. And I'm sure it's
Are you
very,
talking to me?
no, I'm talking to Dan about,
Oh, sorry.
maybe sitting down with David Dimash and just going over
Yeah,
everything.
I had sent him an email and just said we should, in general, I probably should meet with him and just check in about a whole boatload of stuff. But
Yeah.
he's only in a few days a week. Today's not one of them.
Yep.
So we'll see what he says. But it would probably be good to do a meeting. And I mentioned to him, I saw him in passing to let me know we can go over there and take a look at it someday because just take a walk up the street.
Right. And Dan, what's your availability right now? Are you at the beach every day or?
It's so hit or miss. So at this point, like, let me just look at my calendar. Like tomorrow I should be around as long as I have notice, although I might go to this lake association thing at 11. Wednesday I've got a meeting at 3:30. I'm booked tonight. The problem is I'm just perpetually on call.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot scheduled, but like if it rains, I have to deliver lunch at noon. Things like that. So I guess just if we can find some times at work, just let me know.
Okay. All right. And my availability is going to be generally afternoons.
That's
Monday
usually
through
better.
Thursday. All right.
I can't
good.
do Thursdays
All right. So,
because I'll have to be leaving on the road by 3 or 4 o'clock. But like on the 12th, we're going to be here at 3:30 for a meeting already. I think with David as well for some water stuff. But that could be an hour or two.
yeah.
So before or after that is a potential option.
Okay. All right. I'll check in with him tomorrow.
Oh.
Like I said, he called me today, and let's see if we can't all put our heads together, and then we'll regroup in 2 weeks.
He did send that. I don't know if you saw. He sent that email. So to whatever that they wanted,
Oh yeah. Yep.
appointing him the person or some. So that's all taken care of at least.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. So, anybody want to make a motion to close the meeting?
I
motion
make
to close the
motion.
meeting.
And I'll second.
Okay.
All right. Goodness, funny. All those in favor?
All right.
I think we should talk more. Aye.
Are you sure about that?
All right.
All right. Excellent. All right.